Lance on the mic here with a new video. Today, I'm going to help you with all the basics you need to know to play in, hopefully be successful in MLB The Show 24. I will do this in chapters, so look below for the different timestamps on areas you may need assistance with. Let's go ahead and start with general settings. We'll just go into our settings. We'll start with gameplay. This doesn't really matter unless you're doing stuff offline or in a specific mode outside of like Diamond Dynasty or something like that. All games across other modes are typically going to be All-Star. They might start with Veteran and then work to All-Star, but by and large, All-Star is the default mode. It's what is in events, along with Battle Royale as well, and then you can work your way to mostly All-Star in ranked seasons, depending on how much of that you play. Next thing you might want to know in miscellaneous, CPU pitch delay. If you're playing things like Showdown or different moments, put this up to faster, and that will help get things going. It'll keep it from, just waiting a whole lot of time in between pitches. So that's something you can do just if you're trying to save a couple seconds here and there for the different moments or things like Showdown. Next thing we'll go over is your camera. For me, hitting view, you have to be on one of the strike zone cameras. You can try on other views. I personally don't think they are viable if you want to be very good at the game. I typically run strike zone high. I might do strike zone like 1 or 2. I didn't know there was a 3, so I might have to try that out. But typically I'm on a strike zone high. That seems to just be the best. You're still zoomed in, but you're not like all the way zoomed in like some of the other strike zone cameras are. So that's typically the hitting view I go with. In terms of pitching view, this really comes down to personal preference, in my opinion. I think you can be good really no matter what pitching view you use. I typically go catcher near. I like just being behind the plate. You can see the full hitter. You can see the full zone. You can see really all you need to do. I used to go behind the pitcher. I stopped doing that a couple years ago when I really discovered, the different changes you can make to the camera overall back in, I think, MLB 21. So for me, I like catcher near. You just get a good view kind of everything when you're behind the plate and trying to locate pitches the way you want to. In terms of in-play view offense, again, comes down to personal preference. I would typically go for, if you really need help fielding, I would go high. That allows you to be as kind of zoomed out as you can be, the same way I said for the pitching view. That applies to this as well in terms of defense. So I would do high if you really need to in terms of your in-play view defense. I typically have it at medium because I usually know the right routes to go. It's kind of the best thing in terms of getting to the ground ball the way you need to. But in terms of me, I go with dynamic. It allows you to really see, the no-doubter animations, so right when it leaves the bat, okay, that's gone. I don't have to worry about running the bases or anything like that. So I typically go dynamic, but if you are really struggling either running the bases or in terms of getting to ground balls, I would have both your in-play view for defense and offense. I would put that to high if you're struggling with some of those things. Next thing I'll do is talk about defense along with pitching. Let's start with defense, throwing interface, button accuracy. It is the way to go. It's harder than maybe some of the other ways to throw the ball around the bases, but this is the good way and the best way ultimately to know you're making the right throw. Doesn't mean if you get a perfect throw, they're going to be out. Speed matters, of course, and along with other things. So I would put it to button accuracy. You can always go back and change it if you, for some reason, don't like it. It does change depending on the type of throw you're trying to make. Like if you're going to cross your body, it's going to take longer for the meter to get there. So I would do button accuracy. That's, of course, what I do as well. Definitely another thing you want on is throw canceling. It keeps you from making a bad throw if you do mess up with the button accuracy. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get an error 100% of the time. It usually will lead to an overthrow at the bare minimum and could result to a ball going out of play, maybe giving your opponent an extra base or two, depending on what the situation is with base runners. So that is something I would have on. It always is a good fail-safe if you do mess up a throw. You might not get the guy out because of it, but you're only giving them one base instead of two. So that's another reason to have throw canceling on. For me in pitching, I know pinpoint can be a little buggy with the different things they've done. They've, of course, switched it. So if you're new to the game, then it's not going to be different for you. But if you're someone who's been using pinpoint the last few years, if you haven't already realized this, the righty and lefty pinpoints are flipped. So things like fastballs, those are not different. I guess two seams, they are a little different if you're a righty versus lefty. But along with that, all the pitching is different for righties versus lefties. They messed with the sinker. They made that motion a little harder to do. They messed with the curveballs a couple different ways, both with the regular curves, knuckle curves. All of them have a different motion than they've had in the past a little bit. So that is a little trickier. I'm still working on it, especially with the different lefties I'll have on the mound. But in terms of actual accuracy in pitching, this is the best way to go. Pulse, you're literally rolling the dice. You might get a good pitch, you might not. Analog is the next best thing to pinpoint, but even that isn't as actually accurate as what something like pinpoint is. And classic, again, just like with pulse, you're hoping it goes right where it does, and if your guy has confidence, it might, but especially if you give up a hit or two, you are literally just hoping for the best result. So for me, that's why I stick with pinpoint, even if there are things that still need to be fixed within it. Next thing is hitting, and this is where a lot of people seem to make mistakes in terms of what they want to do in terms of hitting. Swing input, buttons, obviously I don't know why you would even want to do something like analog. There's a couple different ways you can do it. I would just go with buttons. I normal swing 99% of the time. Sometimes I'll do power swing if I'm really feeling myself. If there's, for some reason, you want to just put the ball in play and you don't care necessarily, that is not going to be hit very hard. That is the only reason anyone should ever use contact swing. You could square a ball up the same way you do with the normal swing, and it just will be that much loftier. It makes your PCI a lot bigger, so that part's good if you're, someone who needs a bigger PCI, but it will just result in soft hits compared to normal and, of course, power, where it's just going to be soft, even if you do completely square it up. So normal swing is what I do 99% of the time. In terms of hitting interface, zone is the way to go. If you watch any competitive player in this game, pretty much any of them, they're all using zone. They're all using a PCI, which is plate coverage indicator. They are all doing it because, just like with pitching, it's the best way to know where you're actually trying to hit the ball. Because just like the other methods, it is hoping and praying. You might, of course, do well with directional from time to time. With timing, again, your timing can dictate it, but that's not going to put it where you want it to put it. It's going to go where the game thinks you want to put it because you're not doing it yourself. So because of that, zone is the best way to get yourself to be a very good head at the plate. And I will show both the hitting and the pitching in the practice mode and show you how that all should look. So for PCI anchor, that's another thing that was introduced a couple years ago that you can play around with. I personally like using it when I'm in a righty-righty or lefty-lefty. I'll put it down and in the middle of the zone, so it allows me kind of to get to the hard stuff a little better. Doesn't mean I'm always going to hit it, but I feel like that gives me a better advantage when I'm in such as a righty-righty, lefty matchup. So for me, I like the PCI anchor. I've been using it since it was introduced. There are times when I won't use it, even in righty-righty or lefty-lefty, but those are kind of few and far in between. So I stick with the PCI for the anchor when it's one of those matchups. And the PCI indicator itself, that is something, again, you have to go with zone to use a PCI indicator, or PCI, plate coverage indicator. I just called it a PCII. This is only available if your hitting interface is set to zone. For me, I rock with the bat. I've been using the bat since it was introduced. I believe it was just last year in 23. I've been using this pretty much the whole time. It allows me to hit, I feel, to the best of my ability. I like it with cyan. I'll mess with the opacity depending on how my eyes are feeling. Sometimes I'll go up, sometimes I'll go down. Typically around 70 is where I will go, and I don't want it to fade out at all because I want to always be able to see where my PCI is going. So that is how I use it in order to hit in this game. Guess pitch, that doesn't apply to actually online. If somebody says they're doing that to you and you're playing them in a real game, they're not. They're either trying to screw with you or they are very misinformed. Vibration, another thing. Turn it on, turn it off. If you don't like vibration, if you think it messes you up, turn it off. Otherwise, just leave it on and rock with it. You'll get a good vibration when you hit a home run. We'll go with Cattell. Cattell's my boy. And then as you can see, you can mess with the different pitches that you're going to see. You can change it to all sinkers, all cutters, and then you'll only get sinkers and cutters. And then you turn that up, turn that down, and you can also go here and change where you're going to see that as well. So right now, I'm just going to turn it to all strikes, and you can see obviously that it changed. Here's the view we're walking with. And here's Framber, so that was a cutter. You saw that, just come right in there. I do have it again set to all-star, so it's going to be typically the speed that you'll see, when you're playing an online game. Obviously, again, went back to cutter. We still know he's at the high stuff, or we still know he's throwing cutters and sinkers. So we know that's all we're going to get. It's just a matter of where it is. So like there, I saw it. It was good timing. I was able to hit that out even with 49 power, which Cattell only has 49 power on his base card, which is kind of crazy. But so what I'm looking to do, I'm watching the ball as it is being delivered. The same way you try to hit a baseball in real life is the same way you want to try and hit a baseball in the game. If you're not watching the ball the whole way, you're not going to be able to hit it. So that is what you need to do in this game if you want to actually hit the ball. And that all starts with what you do pre-pitch. And so you might have even noticed it as I was talking because I just do it kind of involuntarily. What I do is I move everything up and down, up and around. I'll move it around the strike zone. I'll do this. I'll do that. I might speed it up depending on how I'm feeling. And then I'll just sit back, wait, hit it out. Not an amazing swing, but that's still left. So what I'm always looking to do, I'm always trying to keep myself moving in usually the right direction. And there, you just wait for it, sit back, and hit. You got to have the right approach to know you want to hit what you want to hit. And by that, I mean you might take a strike. You might take another strike. You might get down 0-2. But if you're sitting and waiting for the right pitch, more times than not, you're going to be able to hit it. Obviously, I was late. I was low. I missed that one. So what I'm looking to do, again, I'm always keeping myself active. I'm ready to swing, even if I don't swing. Like that was a pretty good pitch, but I was looking for something up and in, so I just let it go. That is another thing you want to work with and be ready to swing. So obviously that one was right down the middle and I missed it. But my timing was there, but I moved my PCI. That's another thing you're going to want to get used to as well. And another thing when it comes to hitting is you want to have the best controller you can. If you can buy a good controller, do. If you can't, that sucks. You might want to play a different game. But in terms of controllers in this game, as I'm way early on that, I have the Elite controller. I'm not going to say it's the best controller in the game because I don't think it is. So that's a pretty good swing. I'm just kind of swinging here and there when I feel like it. For me, what I'm doing is you want a good controller, as I said, number one. And number two, what I have are control freaks, and these are something you can get online. They have their own websites. You can get them at GameStop. You can get them at Best Buy. I think that's where I got mine. You can get these, and they have different rings that you can just put on your thumbsticks that will allow you to hit better. So for me, I have the red ones. I'm not sure exactly what one they're called, to be honest with you, but they're the red ones. I have that on my left thumbstick only, and that is a little higher. It allows me to have a better grip on what I am looking to do in terms of hitting. And I've had these on for about a year or so. I got them at the start of 23 pretty much, and I've been rocking with it ever since. So I have that on my left stick. And then on my actual pitching one, I'll talk about it a little different once to get to the pitching part of it. But that's another thing that I use, and it has helped me tremendously. So I'm going to stick with practice, but I'm just going to turn everything to down the middle. And I'm going to try putting everything on. Hi, Harley. So now we're just hitting like we would in a game. Yes, Harley. So like that, pretty good pitch. I was late on it because I wasn't ready for something fast. I was waiting for something slow since I hadn't seen anything slow. And that curves right into the bat, still late on it, but I was able to get my PCI to it. And again, you're going to see me do the same thing pretty much every pitch. And that one I was a little under. And another thing that I do when hitting is you see me do kind of the little the circles. I'll do that pretty much every time. And then when he starts his delivery, I'll kind of flick my stick down a little bit. And that just is my kind of mental cue to myself. Hey, get ready to swing. And then be ready to swing if you need to swing. Like that, obviously a little in front of that one, not the best swing, but that's something that I do kind of as my mental note. There are some people that just sit there and they move when they need to move. I like to move pretty much all the time with my left stick and just be ready to swing for when I need to swing. And again, if you have any different questions, let me know those down in the comments of this video, and I will be sure to answer as I was a little on top of that one. Let's see if we can get one more good swing. I'd say that's a pretty good swing. That might not leave, but 49 power with Cattell, yeah, no, it's going to leave. But that's a pretty good swing. 87 off the bat, we squared that up. So for me, what I like to do when I'm pitching is I like to see if they can hit the hard stuff. If I have a fastball, I'll typically start with a fastball. If I have a sinker, righty-righty especially, or lefty-lefty, I will start with a sinker. Not all the time, but often enough, as that's obviously almost right down the middle. The sinker, this is the motion. They changed it. It's a lot harder. I'm able to get a pretty decent one there, but I'm still not perfect with the pinpoint. I'm still kind of working and trying to get better at that myself. So that's another thing. Go into custom practice. Do it in conquest games or in different moments if you are looking to get better at pitching, and then hopefully you can get better at pitching. So for me, and then I'll try to go typically inside, outside. Depending on their timing, then I will go, like a slider down and away. That wasn't completely down, but it was away. That's kind of how I like to work. I like to work inside out, especially if it is a righty-righty matchup. So, that was good timing on his part, but that was probably going to go to my shortstop if I have a shortstop there, because it's obviously just a pitcher and a hitter right now. And then I would, do something like a slider. Depending on what I'm trying to do with my exact location, I'll either try and just straight dot this, and that's a terrible one, so that hopefully would be a fly out in a real game. And so obviously that was not a good pitch. That was right down the middle. But I would then maybe go back to it depending on if they are early, and see that time I dotted it. So I then know, okay, he's looking outside. So then because of that, I go right back to the sinker, and it helps if you locate it inside. But he was not ready for it. He was late. So then because of that, I would probably go back to it. And that's down and in. He's still way late on it. So then I might go back to it if I really want to try it. I will, just for the sake of the video, and he let it go inside, and that's a really good take. So because of that, I then go back to the slider. It helps when you actually locate the slider, but that's the idea I'm going with. I try to, and see, then he finally chases the slider. So it's different, obviously, when you're not in a true game situation, but in terms of just practicing, especially if you are new to pinpoints, I highly recommend practicing as much as you can. If even if it's a few minutes in between games, just because then you maybe stay a little more ready than if you were to not be if you're just sitting there in between games, you could take that extra couple minutes and practice, even if it's, just again a few minutes, and it might help you out in the long run. And another thing to keep in note in this game, and you're not going to again see it because it's custom practice, but the pitch clock is in this game. If you actually sit there and wait too long, you will give up a free ball to the other team. I don't think there's a way that they can actually call anything on a hitter. I know that there's a pitch clock, but I've never seen anything called against a hitter because I don't think there's a way to really, walk around the box the same way that you can in actual baseball. So the pitch clock is there. Just another thing to keep in mind, as that's a pretty decent slider right there, although that's a little too over the plate for my liking. But that's another thing to keep in mind is if you do just sit there for whatever reason, you are in danger of giving up a free ball if you wait too long to pitch. So now let's switch it up a little bit. We'll keep it at pitching, but we'll go with a different pitcher. So we'll go Mitch Keller, and then we'll go righty-lefty, so I can show you a little bit how I would deal with a righty-righty or righty-lefty matchup. So for me, what I typically like to do for righty-lefty, I like to, again, kind of start with something away. So I'll typically go fastball or sinker down and away, see if they bite. They don't bite. So then I will likely, if I have sinker cutter, I'll then go cutter inside somewhere to see if they chase for that. Obviously, that wasn't a great pitch, even though I got 100% on it. So then, if I'm down 2-0, I go back to probably what I did, because I probably missed my spot the first time if I did get it down to a 2-0 count. So now I'm going to go back to the fastball. I might change where I go exactly, as that's probably a decent swing, as that got a little too much plate. So then I like to just try and keep the eye level, keep them guessing in terms of eye level. I very rarely will go right back to something. I only will if it's like they're way late or way early, because that tells me they're either sitting on something or they are not going to see it at all. So I then see, oh, he's very late on a fastball. I'm going to go again, but I'm going to go inside with a cutter this time. And he took it. But again, then I can kind of play around a little bit more. So then I might just try and waste something if this guy's really not going to give me anything. And I left the curve a little over the plate so he was able to hit it, but he kind of rolled over, so he wasn't completely ready for the curve. So that's kind of just, again, how I like to approach the different pitching. So that'll do it for this one. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe for more. Leave a comment down below, either saying these tips helped you, yes, you're awesome, or hey, clear this up a little bit. I have something for you that you did not completely address. So again, leave a comment down below and drop a like and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one.